I thought it was something urgent or something about my son, and he only responded by saying it's something important. I was curious, so I met up with him. When I arrived, he looked very nervous. I got right to the point and asked what was going on. He told me I can't tell my son about it, and I was very confused. He then confessed to me that he was developing feelings for me. I was taken aback. I told him that while I was flattered, I had to think about my son, and I know he wouldn't like that. He pleaded with me to just give him a chance. It was so long that I found somebody interested in me like that, and I just couldn't refuse. Max was already 18 when he was introduced to me, and he was a very handsome man. I said yes, but with the condition that it would be only casual dating. And my son doesn't have to know about it. We met up the next week at his place, and I had told my son that I was going out with friends. It was our very first date, and an hour in, we slept with each other. Our meetings were very frequent, and our relationship grew stronger. The more time I spent with him, the more I loved him. He was such a wonderful person, and it was so easy to talk to him. Eventually, Max became my main source of joy. I always wanted to be with Max, and I looked forward to seeing him at my house every weekend. I was always waiting for the weekend so that it became hard for me to pay attention to anything else in my life. I had forgotten about my relationship with my son. I never ate dinner with him because I would be on dates with Max. I was keeping so many secrets from him, and we never spent any time together anymore. I was just never around for him anymore, and I had so many excuses as to why I wasn't around anymore. I missed out on his soccer games, and I think I really messed up when I missed his birthday dinner because I was with Max. I told him that work held me up. We had managed to keep the secret until the week before my son's flight to college. Max texted me that my son found out about us. I was in the middle of work when I got it, and I was shaking. I was terrified to go back home. I knew I was effed. I got home before my son, and I was just pacing back and forth wondering how he would confront me on this, how I would apologize, and how I could explain the whole situation to him. But when he came home, he never said anything about the situation. He just pretended that nothing ever happened. He became distant with me though, so I know he was really affected by the situation. He was very cold towards me, never looked me in the eye, and only ever gave me one-word responses. It hurt more because this was our final week to be together before he left for college. I barely ever saw him during that time. When it came to dropping him off, he didn't give me a hug, look at me, or respond to my I love you. I had lost my son because of my relationship with Max. When I drove back home, Max's car was in my driveway. It was the first time I saw him ever since I got that text from him. I saw he had a black eye and a broken nose when he stepped out of his car. I knew my son had done that to him, and there was nothing I could do but hug Max and cry in his arms. I told him how bad I felt about what I did to my son, but the worst part was that I was relieved he was gone instead of being sad. Max insisted on staying the night, and he held me as I cried. The next day, he proposed to me. There was no way I could say no to him. 4 years later, we had a daughter together, and we made a life for ourselves. However, the last time I ever saw my son was at the airport. He blocked me on everything and basically disappeared from my life. He stayed with his grandparents, who were pissed at me and the situation I put my son through. They asked me to never contact him ever again. I had almost made my peace with it. I did miss my son, but there was nothing I could do to get him back. I didn't have any way of contacting him since his grandparents also blocked me, and no one ever spoke to me about him. That was until 2 days ago, when my son called me telling me he's going to be in town and wants to meet with me. I could tell he had matured since the last time I saw him, and he was barely recognizable when I met him at a local coffee shop. I was terrified of talking to him, and part of me really wanted to leave. The other part wanted to tackle him with a hug and beg for forgiveness. I sat down in front of him and tried to initiate casual conversation before apologizing profusely to him. But he interrupted me by saying, "Before you apologize, you can now check if there is a part 2 by clicking share and more."